14 states that require you only to notify the police officer you have a gun on you if he asks you. So let's break this down by the must notify states first. If you're in Alaska, Arkansas, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, Louisiana, Michigan, Nebraska, North Carolina, Ohio, South Carolina, and Texas, when you get pulled over, if you've got that concealed carry license, you must notify the officer that you have the gun. Now, there are some other states that have some nuances, like California. There is no state law that requires it, but there are a number of counties in California that require you to notify, a must notify requirement on having a permit in that county. Additionally, in Maine, you are required to notify if carrying without a permit, however, not if you are carrying with a permit. And in North Dakota, if a North Dakota resident constitutionally is carrying without a permit, you should still notify the officer. But, however, not if you are carrying with a permit. So look, I don't want to get bogged down in those 3 specific states, but you should go research those state laws if that's where you're at. Now, what about states that do not require you to notify unless the officer asks you during the traffic stop? Here we would be looking at Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Minnesota, Missouri, New York, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. What if your state was not on that list? If you have a concealed carry license in a state that I didn't read to you on that, then you are not required to tell the officer that you have a gun in your vehicle when you get pulled over. Now, if you don't notify, what is the penalty you could be facing? Here's the crazy part. In many states, there's no penalty at all for failing to notify the officer, even in some must notify states. For example, in Texas, there is no actual criminal penalty for failing to notify the officer that you have a gun. The problem is you could end up losing your concealed carry license if you don't notify him. Now, not all states are created equal, because in some states like North Carolina, you could be facing jail time and misdemeanor charges and pretty significant criminal penalties if you fail to notify the officer because you're in a must notify state. So, how should I notify an officer I've got a gun in the car? This is where it gets a little tricky. Let's take a look at this gentleman who turns out to be a national firearms instructor and also has a concealed carry license. He gets pulled over, he has a gun strapped to his chest, and a police officer approaches him on a traffic stop. I'll tell you how he did.
Listen, I'm a supervisor for a transport company. Obviously, I'm armed. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. I just gave you my permit and everything. Tags are completely expired.
So, as you see, this man has a gun on his chest. The police officer walks up to the window, and before he even tells him why he pulls him over, we see this gentleman in the driver's seat interrupt him and tell him what? I know that my tags are already expired. So one of the first things we have to do is remember, keep our hands on the steering